Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the lovely podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I'm your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and today is episode 57. We're going to be talking about the Gay and Lesbian Labor Activist Network, and this one is a little bit different. And the reason why is because it kind of has a funky founding, and it's not really clear exactly where their direction is going because they're under a couple different umbrellas. But first of all, let me give a big shout out to my listeners. So let me go to my list here. So a big shout out to District of Columbia, Massachusetts, Oregon, Ohio, British Columbia, Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia, Texas, and Oklahoma. Okay, so we got that puppy covered there. So let's go ahead and get started on this one. So it doesn't necessarily give me, it gives me a founding date, but it doesn't necessarily give me an exact location and their how many people are actually within this. It's supposedly a trade union, but it's made up of several of them because it encompasses several different groups. So it's not like the typical labor unions that we see where you're talking about welders, plumbers, train engineers. It's not like that because this is just a network. It's not actually a labor force. So it's different in that it's not like you work as an occupation as either gay or lesbian, because this has nothing to do with work. The other ones that we looked at were specifically dealing with a job title. They were specifically dealing with a trade. So I don't know how they can claim to be a trade unionist when, it's not a trade to be gay or lesbian. I guess the way that they're classifying themselves is that they're trying to help create more equality within the workplace, which I'm fine with that. I think work should be about work. It should not be about whether you are gay or straight. I don't think your sexuality should matter. The only thing I get really concerned with in regards to groups like this is how they try and prop themselves up above other people, meaning they're pushing so much for their rights in the workplace that they put down straight people, and that's not what you're supposed to do. I kind of feel like it's a knee-jerk reaction, and I don't like that. I understand where they're coming from in terms of being discriminated against. I mean, I'm not gay by any means, but I know what it's like to be discriminated against for other reasons. And so, I am completely against any form of discrimination, especially in the workplace, because work should be about work. But where I get concerned with this group is how they infiltrate different things. And there's a lot of stuff that doesn't mention in regards to this network. And maybe it's because the other stuff I get concerned with is in regards to the LGBTQIA, whatever alphabet goes into that. So I looked up LGBTQ, and then there's like a couple other letters that are added to it. And so I guess it's trying to include anyone that doesn't necessarily include themselves or describe themselves as heterosexual or straight. And I think that is wrong to do that because there may be people that, they may think of themselves as queer, but they don't want to be a part of this group. They don't want to be classified as LGBTQIA, whatever other letters are behind that. It's a private thing. It's not public, it's private. It's an individual lifestyle, it's individual choice. It's just private. And so I kind of feel like with the LGBTQ, whatever letters you want to put at the end of that, I kind of feel like with them, it's like you're either straight or you're with us. Well, I don't think that's really fair to do that to all these people, especially transgender people. Now, I don't agree with transgenderism, however you want to word that word, because I don't really understand why anyone would become transgender. Because I would think that if you're born a certain way, you would want to stay that way because you're going with what you were born, meaning that's in your DNA, it's in your chromosomes. So I just get really concerned with this because it's groups like this and anything to do with the homosexual agenda, they have been hell-bent on infiltrating our public schools. Because I kind of feel like they started out in the workforce, infiltrating that, and, they're claiming they want just equality, but they want so much more. So I kind of feel like they targeted the workplace, and then now they're trying to infiltrate schools with their ideology and their curriculum, and it's not appropriate for children. Not by any means. And what I'll say about that is that children are children. Like, I think they're being taught way too young about sex. Way too young. And I think they're being taught inappropriate things about sex. And I think the sex talk needs to come from their parents. You know, the birds and the bees conversation, as they say. Unfortunately, because parents have gotten lazy, and yes, I said parents have gotten lazy over the years, they rely too much on the public school system to educate their children on every little thing, when so many of those personal discussions need to be between the parents and the children. It has nothing to do with the school, but there are a lot of people that they are okay with the public school system teaching their kids about sex at a really young age when they should not be sexually active. And they teach them how to use condoms, they hand out condoms, and that's not right. Like, you're encouraging people to be sexually active before they get married. And that's not right. I mean, here's the thing. A lot of these kids, I look at it this way, most of them, they can't drive, they can't vote, they can't legally drink, they can't rent a hotel, but yet we're teaching all these children, mind you, of how to have sex, how to do all these sex acts, and you're just planting seeds of immoral behavior into their head. Like, they're gonna figure stuff out later anyway, but I don't think it's appropriate to teach those things to children. Like, there was a story a while ago where there were these 4th graders that were being taught oral sex by this one teacher. She was crazy. I can't remember where this happened, but parents were horrified at this. Because they're 4th graders. They're like 10 or 9, 10 or 11, depending on, when they started school. Like, to me, a lot of this sexual curriculum is stealing the innocence of our children. Like, children, their childhood is only one part of their life. They have the rest of their lives to be an adult. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't have access to certain information. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that we are trying to make these kids become adults and make adult decisions at way too young an age. And what I don't like about the homosexual agenda is that they're encouraging young people to question their sexuality way before they've even hit puberty. Like, they're trying to, chemically reassign them. And what I mean by that is there are some parents that if they have a girl, they want to be a boy, and if they have a boy, they want to be a girl, so they're giving them hormones to change their sex before the child is even fully grown yet, before they've even hit puberty, and that is so cruel to do that, because that's gender reassignment just on the whim of a stupid parent, and that literally is stupid to me, and I think it's really cruel because you're stealing someone else's identity and you're stealing someone else's future, but that goes along with the homosexual agenda. They're okay with that. And what people need to wake up to, sorry, I'm a little tired right now, but at the moment. So, what people need to wake up to is that homosexual men want to lower the age of consent, like they really want to target young boys. And I don't understand why no one is calling out the homosexual crowd on this, because we imprison pedophiles, but yet homosexual men, they want to go for the young ones, they want to go for the kids. It's like, well, if that's not legal, if it's illegal, if pedophilia is illegal, why are we allowing the homosexual crowd to try and legalize certain sex acts so they can just do whatever they want, especially the children who are not fully grown? Like, I think once you reach the age of 18, if someone gay hits on you, you can handle that yourself. If you're like 18, 19 years old, you can tell them no or yes, that's your decision. Because that is an adult decision. So whenever you have one group in the United States that is wanting to alter someone else's childhood and give themselves permission to do whatever they want to someone sexually at a young age, that is a sexual crime. And that's really disturbing to me. That is very disturbing. And I look at it this way, if it's wrong for priests to try and entice little boys to have sex with them, then why are we okay with the homosexual agenda that's taking place in our schools? So what they're trying to do is the homosexual crowd, what they're trying to do, and straight people are going along with this. I don't know why. I don't get it. I don't know why you would go along with something that you don't live yourself, like, and that you You don't practice yourself, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it's one thing to have differences, but it's another thing to know for a fact that someone's lifestyle is so different and so wrong, but yet we're still going to tolerate it. Like, that's not what it means to be an adult. So again, I don't understand how we can just let the homosexual agenda infiltrate our schools, brainwash our kids into thinking, oh, it's okay to be gay, or it's okay to pick what sex you are, or it's okay to pick your sexuality even as a child. Those are adult decisions. Those are adult decisions, meaning like they're in adulthood. Like once you reach age 18, you are an adult. And here's another thing. Technically, the frontal lobe in the human is not fully developed until like age 25. So if that's the case, which it is, like we know that from a physical point of view, psychological point of view, like we know this from research, if we know this to be true, which we do, then why are we trying to force our children to make a decision that will affect the rest of their lives when they haven't even hit puberty yet? And if they have hit puberty, they're not fully developed yet. And if they are fully developed in terms of like physically, their brain is still not fully developed until age 25. So why are we trying to force these adult decisions onto children? That's my biggest concern. Like, I don't mind if someone is still trying to figure out their sexuality and they are an adult. Like, that's their adult decision. Like, I don't agree with homosexuality. I just don't. I mean, I'm respectful of them. And I've met some really nice homosexuals over the years. I've met some really mean ones. They're usually very gay men, and that they're very desperate to try and look and talk like women. I'm like, look, you have an Adam's apple. You have ginormous hands. I mean, you have huge shoulders. Do you really think you're going to look like a woman? No. Like, just accept the facts of what you were born and be grateful for what you were born. Be grateful and appreciative and embrace who you are naturally, that you're a man, and probably a good-looking man too. So, I don't mind people deciding what they want to be when they are an adult, which would be age 18. And even then I would say, hey, at least wait till your mid-20s. Give your body a chance to catch up with your thoughts. You know what I mean? Like give your hormones a chance to start working at the appropriate levels. Because see, here's the thing. When you're a kid and you hit puberty, there are so many hormonal changes that take place. It's very fast. It's very quick. And I remember being a teenager, and I was just kind of surprised at all the feelings I was feeling when I hit puberty, and I hated it. Like, I hated going through puberty. I don't know anyone that actually enjoyed it, but I'm just saying, like, I couldn't wait to become an adult because I was hoping that my hormones would calm down, and they did, But it was just, it's tough. It's tough being a child. It's tough being a teeny bopper. So I think we need to cut them some slack and let them decide on their own who they want to be, and give them a chance to grow up, be an adult. But unfortunately, with groups like this, when they're trying to push the homosexual agenda, especially with the LGBTQ crowd, I don't think it's right to steal someone's identity, and that's what you're doing when you're brainwashing people. To me, it's almost like a cult. Like, cults, the only way that they can control people is to manipulate them and brainwash them and convince them that their way is right, as opposed to letting them come to their own conclusion. See, that's the thing. When you're infiltrating schools and you're brainwashing kids with all this adult material, like, you're doing the same thing that a cult does. And that's not a good thing. And also, I don't think we should be teaching kids about sex until they hit puberty, if not a little further into puberty, because some of it, I've seen some of the material, and it's very pornographic. I'm like, pornography is wrong, so why are we having these sex ed classes that, are teaching them all this stuff? And I'm just going, way before sex was taught in school, for thousands of years, people have known or figured out how to have sex once they get married. And even if they don't get married, they figure it out. But I think sex is better left to be in the sacrament of marriage, which is between one man and one woman. There may be some people that disagree with that, but that is how it's supposed to be. we're not supposed to take sex outside of marriage and then manipulate to how we want it and then call it something else and then claim it's freedom when really you're just enslaving yourself to something that you don't really understand and it's being manipulated. So, I'll give an example like the sexual revolution of the 60s, the hippies. They totally degraded the Sex Act, totally degraded it, took it out of wedlock. Of course, they're not the only ones to do that. Premarital sex is nothing new. But it really did not help our generation because look at how the rate of marriage has gone down. Like, not as many people get married and then not as many marriages last. A lot of them end in divorce. So I think we have just stripped the human family of its dignity. And one way we have done that is with LGBTQ agendas and with the homosexual agenda. I think that's really wrong to teach this stuff and to be okay with it because it goes against nature. You're either born male or female. There are some hermaphrodites out there that are born with both genitalia, but here's the thing, when they're born, the doctor, they are aware of these things can happen, so they're trained and medically taught and medically trained that you make a decision on which genitalia is more developed because that's what they're supposed to be, because whatever is more developed is what more of the hormones are going to be naturally produced in their body. And it will line up more with that chromosome. So, but my point is this, with that, is that it's very rare for someone to be born with both. And it's very rare for people to be born not knowing who they're supposed to be, whether male or female. And so that's why a lot of times, I think that when someone is not sure about who they are, they need to see a counselor so that individual can figure out what they need to do. Not turn on the TV or the internet and try and figure it out and just, go by what a celebrity says or what this survey says or this research document that they may not completely understand. I think that the individual needs to figure these things out because it's their individual journey. It doesn't belong to me and it doesn't belong to you. It's the individual. And I think that if an individual wants to change their sex, wants to do that, that very much disappoints me, but they have every right to do that. But I think they need to wait until they are at least age 18, if not till they're 25, to give their body a chance to grow into the adult that they were supposed to be and that they are supposed to be. Because they always have this phrase, well, I'm born this way. I'm like, well, if you're changing your sex, you're not allowing yourself to be who you were born to be. I just find that very hypocritical and kind of weird. And so I think those people are lost. I really do, like in terms of, their identity. And, our sexual identity is very important. Very important, but it's also on an individual basis. And that's a very private matter. And I think that should be taken seriously. I think it should be respected. And I think that if someone is questioning their sexual identity, they need to seek help with that. I don't think they're crazy. I think that is a legitimate question, and I think that they should receive a legitimate resource. I think they should have access to help. I think they should have access to an expert opinion, not just someone that just randomly posts stuff online or is not certified is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think that if you need help with something like that, you need to see a medical professional so that way they can walk you through, what you're currently going through and try and figure some things out about yourself, because, maybe there are some people, I know there are some people that they had gender reassignment and they regret it. And I don't know if they can go back to what they were born naturally. I don't know what that process is. I think that's very sad. But I do mention this, that, I do think that if someone is questioning their sexuality, that they go speak to a professional about it. Don't just take it up with your friends or your family or a stranger or a coworker or a boss. Go to a medical professional, a really good counselor, that can help you work out that stuff. Because I will say this, I know that there are some people, they were raised so dysfunctional. They were fed so many lies about human sexuality, whether gay, straight, or sexually confused. They were just fed so many lies about stuff that they don't know which end is up. And I feel so sorry for them because I think regardless of whether you're gay or straight, you need to be told the truth so you can make that decision which lifestyle is best for you and where do you fit into society. I mean, I don't particularly agree with the homosexual lifestyle, but that's just my difference of opinion, and that's just because of the faith that I am, because I'm a Christian, and I know what God says about homosexuality, but I do believe that homosexuals deserve dignity and respect, and we're not supposed to throw them away or be disrespectful to them. Like, I've worked with homosexuals, I've had homosexual friends, I've met so many of them over the years, and I'm just like, it's not Christian. It's not the Christian thing to do to be mean to anyone just because someone's different or has a different lifestyle. Can I disagree with their lifestyle? For sure. I mean, they probably disagree with my lifestyle that, compared to the majority of our population in the United States, I live a pretty holy lifestyle, or religious lifestyle, even though I don't consider myself religious. Compared to a lot of people, they claim I'm religious because I don't sleep around. I don't sleep I don't sleep or have sex outside of wedlock. When I say don't sleep, I don't mean like I don't ever take a nap or something. I mean like I'm not sexually active is what I mean. Pardon my wording on that. My brain's a little tired because I've been doing a lot of work. I've been writing a book, so I've actually I've published my 3rd book now. So I am on to my 4th one. So go me, I love it. So that was wonderful, but it is exhausting writing a book sometimes. So perfect excuse to drink some Dr. Pepper. But anyway, I think that regardless of what lifestyle someone has, it is my obligation and my duty as a Christian woman, as a Christian believer, to be kind to that person, to show them kindness and compassion. That doesn't mean I tolerate or accept their lifestyle as a correct way. But I love them anyway, and I'm going to show them dignity, respect, regardless of whether I agree with them or not. Because, nowhere in the Bible, because I do believe in the Bible because it is the Holy Word of God, and it is very much inspired Holy Scriptures, nowhere in there does it give us permission to be mean or cruel. It does give us permission to walk away from bad situations or mean people, or, it technically gives us permission to have disagreements, but in a kind way, and to have a difference of opinion. But nowhere in there does it give me permission to be a jerk or to shame or blame someone or to think that they're going to hell and I'm not. Just this wrath of God stuff. That's not, the wrath of God belongs to God. It doesn't belong to me and it doesn't belong to you. So, even though I disagree with so many things about the homosexual agenda, they're still good people. And if they live in the United States and they're citizens of the United States, guess what? They're also a citizen of the United States. And they also pay taxes here. And, homosexuals, they do care about their country wherever they live. Sometimes they are the most vocal about human rights in their country where they live. And I think that's wonderful. But what I don't agree with on that is that sometimes they put their rights, the homosexual agenda, above heterosexual rights, and that's not correct, because it's like if it wasn't right for straight people, for heterosexuals to put their rights above homosexuals or gays, then it's not right for homosexuals or gays to put their agenda and their rights over ours, when in fact we are equal. We're equal in the eyes of the law because we're just citizens that happen to live different lives. I mean, that's all it is to it. And, we're not forced to be friends, we're not forced to necessarily associate, things like that. But I mean, I don't have to think one way to associate with someone. Like, I don't wear blinders, if that makes sense. Like, how else should I describe this? Like, you and I are not horses. One way that you can always guide a horse in one direction is to put blinders on them. And then it's the driver that sends them on the path, right? Well, that's not how people are necessarily. Like, we don't have to have blinders on in order to be kind and respectful to someone and understand that some people are just on a different path, a different journey. I may not agree with it, but that's okay. I can still love and respect them. Like, I can still want what's best for them. And I'll give an example. Like, if there was someone that I knew that was gay and needed my blood, if they needed for me to donate blood, I would donate it. If I was a match and, if my iron levels are good, if everything's good on that, I would totally donate my blood to a gay person if they needed it. Like I wouldn't go, oh, I only donate to straight people. No, like that's, a person is a person. Period. That's it. Like I can disagree with someone all day and all night. But, I don't look at it as I disagree with someone all day, all night. I just look at it as, well, we just have a difference of opinion. That's okay. There are way more straight people that I disagree with than gay people. I will say that up front. Like, there are so many straight people that they just, they just don't understand some things. But I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on some of this. But, I think sometimes there can be extremes in both camps, whether you're gay or straight. And I think we need to find some common ground and be kind and respectful to everybody and also protect our children's innocence. Like, they don't need to be taught all this sex stuff. Like, I remember, I think it was in 5th grade, the school nurse came and talked to us. Of course, they split us up. So the boys knew we were probably going to get our feminine pads or napkins or whatever that day because we got pulled out of class. I'm like, this is so embarrassing. Like, couldn't you just let our parents handle this? It was horrible. And I have no idea what they taught the boys. But anyway, so the school nurse came and talked to us, and it was just kind of creeper. It was creepy. It's like, I don't want to have to hear about this. I was like, why am I being taught this? I'm a little kid. Like, I'm in grade school. Most of the girls had already started their periods and stuff like that, but it's just kind of like, I think parents need to handle that stuff. I think if it's a daughter, the mother needs to handle that. If it's a son, the father needs to handle that. Needs to have that discussion of the birds and the bees. So that's just my personal opinion on that, because I do think sometimes schools don't handle things very well. And plus, when it's your individual kid, do you really want a stranger telling them all this stuff? Like, some of it was so gross. I was like, I just thought this is completely inappropriate. Like, even though I was a 5th grader, I was like, whoa, over my head, out the window, gross, and not appropriate for me. And in my head, I was thinking, why am I being told some of this stuff? I'm not sexually active, and I don't care to be sexually active at this point in time. Like, and the nurse is just like, well, we just want you to be aware. I'm like, okay, I get it. Adults have sex. We're not adults yet. That's how I looked at it from a kid's point of view. But that's how other children look at it. And it really made me uncomfortable. Like, I just felt creepy for the rest of the day and probably for the rest of the week, because I just kind of felt like I was told and taught stuff that was not my business, and it kind of felt a little sexually inappropriate, some of the things we were told and taught. And I just did not like that. So I just remember how I felt as a little girl. And I just wonder how some of these little kids are feeling when they're being taught stuff at a way younger age. And I don't understand. This is probably, out of left field or whatever, but I don't understand why we're teaching kids at a young age about sex when they're not even taught how to write their names. Because a lot of schools have discontinued penmanship classes. And they've also discontinued teaching kids cursive. But yet, we're going to teach them how to have sex in like the 3rd or 4th grade, when they need to be taught reading and writing. Like, I hope that this makes sense in terms of, hey, our agenda is way out of whack in terms of a sequence and in terms of what children need to know and what they don't need to know. That's my personal opinion, but, I know this from working with children. Children don't need to know about sex. Teenagers, yes, they do, but little kids, no. Like, they will figure stuff out on their own eventually, but, the sex ed talk, that needs to come from their parents, and they need to be teenagers. And that information needs to come from someone that is trustworthy, not just some random social worker who's having a bad day and can't stand their job. That's kind of like what our school nurse was like. I felt sorry for her. I really did. I was like, oh no. She doesn't want to be here. We don't want to be here. We don't want to hear it. She doesn't want to say it. And it was just drudgery. Like, it was just like she was just dreading this. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get started on this one. But that's kind of my intro to this. Very touchy subject here. But let's go ahead and finish this one up. So this is the Gay and Lesbian Labor Activist Network. So it says the Gay and Lesbian Labor Activist Network, also known as GALLON, is a nonprofit organization of trade unionists, so multiple people, founded in 1987 by Tess Ewing, Harnan Chernow, Susan Maurer, Cheryl Schaefer, Nancy Marks, Gary Thomas, Tom Barbara, and Diane Fry, and a few other members of Boston's LGBTQ community. Now, I'm not surprised that this is coming from Boston because it's up north. As you know, I'm from Oklahoma. So I'm not surprised that this kind of liberal thinking is from up north, because we know that a lot of liberal stuff, pretty much not conservative, comes from up north and tends to be on the east or west coast. So I'm not surprised to hear this. A lot of strange stuff comes from Boston anyway. So it says GALLON's main purpose was to support LGBTQ rights and oppose hemophilia. But homophobia in the workplace, as well as push its unions to campaign for discriminatory measures and benefits packages. Sorry, let me get a drink of water. Hold on one moment. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. The air is still a little dry here in Oklahoma, but here's the thing. I do agree with them on this when they're fighting against homophobia in the workplace, because that definitely has no place being there. I've worked with gay, straights, bisexual people. I've worked with quite a few of those. They're a little different, but they're still good workers. Like, when we go to work, it's supposed to be about work. It's not about what someone does in the bedroom. I don't want to hear about that, whether it's gay, straight, or whatever, or orgies. I don't want to hear any of it. None of it. Like, I'm there to work. Excuse me. So if someone is being harassed because they're homosexual or bisexual or anything outside of heterosexual, they should not be harassed at all. Nobody should be harassed, even straight people. So I think that we should treat others how we want to be treated. Because what I've learned from being harassed in the workplace is that it's a form of hate. And hatred has no place in our world. I mean, it needs to stop. It's inappropriate, it's cruel, it's inhumane. And so even though I completely disagree with the homosexual lifestyle and the agenda, we still need to respect everybody. We need to be kind and loving and compassionate. So if we're doing anything outside of that, that's not the right way to live. So, I mean, I have to side with the homosexuals on that part. GALLON started as a series of potluck dinners and discussions, and later hosted events for the community in partnership with labor unions to campaign for LGBTQ rights within the state of Massachusetts. Again, I'm not surprised that happened up north because they're pretty liberal. They've been liberal for a long time. GALLON helped to form the national organization Pride at Work, I don't agree with that, in 1994, which became a constituency group of the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, also known as AFL-CIO, in 1997. Today, GALLON is considered a local chapter of Pride at Work. Now, what I don't like about that is that they're pushing the homosexual agenda at the workplace. I don't think any agenda should be pushed at the workplace. I think work should be about work, plain and simple. And it goes on to say, in one of their early flyers, GALLON stated their mission was to raise lesbian and gay issues within organized labor and to bring labor issues to the LGBTQ community at large. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I don't completely agree with it, because I don't think we should be bringing issues into the workplace when having issues at the workplace is the problem, whether it's gay or straight. The organization believed that both movements could be strengthened by recognizing that homophobia and oppression of working people are linked, and many of the two struggles are intertwined. They listed the similarities between the movements as the following. Specific protection for lesbian and gay workers has been won by many unions in collective bargaining agreements. Gay workers are otherwise protected from arbitrary treatment by employers by just cause agreements in union contracts. Employment policies that discriminate against the LGBTQ community hurt all workers by creating divisions, making workers as a class weaker than they need to be. Many unions such as SEIU and AFSCME have been in the forefront of AIDS education in the fight to prevent discriminatory work policies. National gay labor coalitions have developed and have successfully worked together in Boston, New York, and San Francisco to fight against anti-gay and anti-labor initiatives by the Heritage Foundation and the CORE's interests. Now I want to mention this about the AIDS education thing. That reminded me of the movie Philadelphia, and I believe it won some awards, and I think it was based on a true story. It has Tom Hanks in it. And if I remember correctly, because I was a kid when this came out, so I've only seen bits and pieces of it as an adult, so I probably need to watch the whole thing. But if I remember correctly, it's about a gay guy, who's a good-looking lawyer. He goes to work for this law firm. He's having sex with all these other gay lawyers that are there, and they have the gay lifestyle, and some of them are married to women because they try and hide their homosexuality. Well, this gay guy who's played by Tom Hanks contracts HIV and eventually develops AIDS, and he's fired for having HIV/AIDS. So he was discriminated against and eventually fired, and I'm pretty sure he passed away, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but it's a really sad story. And here's the thing. That just saddens me to no end, that someone would be discriminated against for contracting a very dangerous virus and then losing their job and being harassed and all this stuff. That is so horrible to treat someone that was hired to do a job and they need a job in order to pay for the medication and the doctor's visits. Like, they need help, not discrimination. So, I mean, and I'm a straight person saying this. And I think that back when AIDS was discovered, I think people were so fearful of it. They were so irrational and so fearful of it that they just kind of tolerated really horrible ways of behavior in the workplace. And even in some places nice as in Philadelphia at a law firm. Like, ordinarily, like when I was a kid, I never thought that lawyers would be gay. Like, when I was growing up, we just thought gays were like the silly people, because that's usually all the ones we saw were like performers and things like that. Like, I didn't know as a kid that there are gay people in every profession. They're just not all as flamboyant. And some of them have not completely come out of the closet, which that's fine. They can stay in there. I am a firm believer that everybody should go back in the closet. I don't want to hear about anybody's sexuality, whether it's gay, straight, or sexually confused, because I think our world was a better place when we respected everybody else's privacy. But if you have not watched that film, Philadelphia, it's a really good one. And it describes very well how much this guy suffered at the hands of his employer because of their cruelty towards him. When he didn't need more enemies, he needed a friend. So it's like they're his friend, and he's a great employee as long as he never gets sick with anything, and as long as it's not exposed that there's other gays that work there at this law firm. So it's kind of the same thing in so many other workplaces where it's like, we're inclusive until we don't like you anymore. That's why the word inclusive or inclusiveness is such a lie. Because they are inclusive until they turn on you, which is what happened to this guy. Like, it doesn't matter if someone's gay or straight or whatever they are. It's about the job. Can they do the job? What were they hired to do? Like, for example, when you apply for a job, if in the job description it says, let's say you're applying for a staff accountant position. Let's say their job requirements are as follows: a 4-year degree, have worked in the accounting field for over 10 years, and be heterosexual, be straight, be married, and have 2 kids. Oh, and no chronic diseases in your family. Now, does any of that job description sound illegal or immoral? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Trying to only hire a certain type of person that's straight, married, and has kids. Or let's say, for example, that, let's go the other way. Let's say, for example, in the job description it says, we only hire straight people, we only hire gay people. That's discrimination towards straight people if you're only hiring gays. So it goes both ways. But my point is this. Your sexual preferences and the lifestyle that you have and that you live has nothing to do with the work that you do, because your work is between you and your employer. And it's your job. It's just a way of earning a living. It has nothing to do with what you do in your bedroom. It has nothing to do with that. I mean, even if you're a prostitute, your employer should not be interfering with that. And I don't agree with prostitution by any means. I think it's horrible, deplorable, and disgusting and wrong. I think it should be illegal all across the planet. But, there's lots of sex trafficking. It's really horrible. But, my point is this, is that whatever happens in someone's sexuality and whatever happens in the bedroom has nothing to do with the job. So someone's sexuality and who they date, where they date, where they live, who they marry, if they have kids, if they don't have kids, if they have a dog, if they have a cat, if they have heart disease, if they have, kidney disease or diabetes, that has nothing to do with the job description. That has nothing to do with completing the actual work. And see, here's why we're having some problems with these discriminations. So whenever there were a ton of court cases, whether local, state, federal, or Supreme Court cases per se, about discrimination that takes place in the workplace, I kind of feel like our federal government had a knee-jerk reaction. And so now whenever you're filling out like new hire information, and it asks you what sex you are, sometimes asks you your religion, your race, and now they're asking you about your sexual identity in terms of, do you identify as homosexual or heterosexual, or sometimes they just say gay or straight. And I'm just like, how is that anybody's business? Like, if we're not supposed to be discriminating against someone because, they're male or female or gay or straight or white or black, then we shouldn't be filling out these forms at all. But unfortunately, because of all this stuff that has happened, the federal government got involved and it did something very stupid. And now this form, it also includes, do you have a chronic disease or a disability, or are you a disabled veteran, or are you a veteran? Like, all of those things can be used against you, unfortunately. And employers do it all the time. And people will say, no, Leslie, that doesn't happen. Yes, it does. Because just think about what all you're saying and what you're answering on those forms. And I'm going to get a quick drink of water. Hold on just a moment. Okay, good Ozarka bottled water. I love it. Okay, so here's the thing. I have never agreed with filling out those forms because I've always thought of it as it's nobody's business. What does it matter what sex I am? I didn't get the job because I have ovaries. And what does it matter what color I am? I didn't get the job because I'm white. And what difference does it make what my specific race is? It doesn't matter that I'm white. And then what's interesting is I applied for a job over in Europe like several years ago. They wanted to know like if I was Irish, French, all this different stuff. I was like, whoa, what? They want to know my heritage too? It was so invasive. And I just thought, like that just bugged me. I just thought we are getting so off course, like we're overreacting to so many things. It's kind of disgraceful to the human race. Like, if we're not supposed to be practicing discrimination, then we shouldn't be asking all these questions. Because I'll tell you this, there was one job I applied to, this was several years ago, and it was me and this black guy. We were both filling out our pre-employment paperwork on our first day. And there was all these questions about race. It was really offensive to me, and I'm the white person in the room, right? And I'm really white, like I'm very fair-skinned because I'm French and Irish. And so I asked the HR lady that was in the room, I said, I'm not comfortable answering these questions. And she's like, what questions? I was like, all these questions about my race. I was like, it's not really anybody's business what race I am, and it has nothing to do with the job. And it says here I don't have to fill it out. And she goes, well, that's true, but if you don't fill it out, then you can't work here. I was like, so basically you'll fire me unless I fill this out. And she goes, no, we don't fire people, it's just you won't work here. And this black guy's just looking at me and she's looking at her and he goes, Leslie's got a point. Like, these bother me too. And he's like thinking, I'm black. Like, this is really offensive. And she said, well, you can either fill it out and have a job, or you can just decide to walk out. And it's like, well, we don't want to walk out. We want to work here. We're just not comfortable filling out this form. And it was really a weird form. And I believe it was a federal form. It was just creeper. And so she got really angry at both of us. And here we are. I'm white. He's black. Neither of us agree with the documentation that we're supposed to be filling out. And so we just kind of looked at each other and said, well, I guess we have to fill it out if we want to earn a living. How sad is that? we were both bullied into filling this stuff out that we did not want to convey to anyone. It was really weird. But, that's the heavy arm or the strong arm of the government overreacting to court cases, court decisions, and new laws and regulations that have been passed. And, this employer, I know they're just trying to cover their posterior, but at the same time, they're creating a barrier between, people of different races within the workplace, because it was very creepy filling that out, sitting next to someone that's of a different race than me. Usually I'm not uncomfortable by that, but I was like, I just wondered what he thought of all this stuff, because it was racially offensive even to me. And then I saw his facial expression, and I saw him look over at me, because he sees that I'm not filling it out. Like, I'm just staring at it like, this is so unbelievably offensive, and I don't like it at all. And then he stopped filling it out, and then that's when I spoke up about it. And that's when we pretty much got bullied. That, it's kind of like, who are you to question us? You have to fill this form out. Otherwise, you lose your job. Before we actually even get to start our job, we almost lost our jobs. And, we became pretty good chums at that place of work. We parted ways, after I think I left and he still stayed there, but he was a really nice guy. And it's just that form, it just kind of made it feel like a pre-Black Lives Matter movement is what it made it feel like. It's like either one of us or against us, and it's like, like the average person is not thinking about race all the time. How do I word this? Like, we're just trying to live our lives and to live it well. That's all. That really is all we're trying to do. And, anything outside of that is just really not appropriate for us. So, but anyway, I'll go ahead and move on, but I just want to bring that up because we should not be having these agendas pushed down our throat at a place of employment, whether it's for gays or for straights. It doesn't matter, whether it's for whites or blacks. There should be no agendas going on at work. We're just supposed to be doing the work, earning a living, hopefully a lot of money, and having a nice life. Like, you should enjoy where you work. So, but anyway, let's move on with this one. It says, Gallon hosted many events in order to educate the community about LGBTQ issues and support their cause. Events and activities include marching at gay pride parades, building coalitions with LGBTQ groups, working on referendum campaigns, supporting union organizing drives, providing education to unions, and attending rallies and providing strike support. I don't like the strike support thing. I think you need to be kind to employers. If you disagree with them, go work elsewhere, because you're not going to change someone's mind. I know that. I've worked with bigots. All kinds, shapes, and sizes. Believe me, I've learned that I can't change their mind. Only God can, so just pray for a miracle. The Gay and Lesbian Activist Network held regular networking events in Boston for members called Gay and Lesbian Labor Activist Networking Today, also called as Gallant, ending in an S. On flyers for the event, they defined the word gallant as show or gay in appearance, high-spirited and courageous. Gallant started by hosting meetings, potluck events to help bring gay issues to the labor community and labor issues to the gay community. Gallant also participated in larger national events, such as the celebration of Labor Solidarity, which took place in October 1987 in Washington, D.C. This event honored the mutual support between the lesbian and gay movement and the U.S. labor movement and featured speakers from labor unions across America, as well as Barney Frank, who I'm not a fan of. He's an evil, wicked man, a U.S. Congress member at the time. So here's the thing. When it comes to the gay and lesbian movement, I feel sorry for the lesbians, because I kind of feel like they get outshined all the time by homosexual men, because lesbians are gay. They are homosexuals, but I feel like homosexual men, they just kind of hog the limelight. They just kind of, or the spotlight, whatever wording you want to use. And I kind of feel like what they live with and what they go through is not really being talked about, because I still feel like it's shamed to be a lesbian. And I've worked with lesbian women. And, I'm not always a fan of them per se, because they can be a little gruff and rough, and they know that I'm prissy and I'm straight and all that stuff, and sometimes that bugs them. But other times, other times lesbians can be really nice, and they'll be there for you to back you up, like if you need help with something. Just like that one experience I talked about when I was working at a laundromat. I was closing late, and a lesbian trucker came in, and she was doing laundry, and she was massive. She was huge. And she defended me from this really horrible, mean client that was a guy. And, she made sure I got to my vehicle safely, just to make sure he wasn't waiting for me in the parking lot, because this guy was angry at me and the owner of this laundromat because we did not want him doing his laundry there anymore, because he had verbally berated me and some other laundry workers as well. So, it was very concerning. But this guy was also an alcoholic. Like, that's not an excuse, but it's just kind of like, when someone's a heavy drinker, they don't behave appropriately, you have to be on your guard, like extra special kind of thing, and take note of that. But what was nice was that this lesbian lady, she recognized that this guy made me very uncomfortable, and that I needed someone to keep me company. And she stayed, and she didn't hit on me. It was nothing inappropriate. I mean, she could tell I wasn't gay at all, and she was just really kind to me. And I never saw her again after that. And she wished me well, and I wished her well, and she walked me to my vehicle, and she got in her truck, and she had to continue her journey in her semi-truck, because Oklahoma has a lot of semi-vehicles or semi-trucks that go through our state, because we have, I think, 2 or 3 major interstate highways that go through the middle of Oklahoma. And so, and we also have a lot of oil and gas here. So, I mean, this lady, she was large for a reason. I mean, she was built for a reason. I mean, she could handle anything. I mean, she was just a giant. She's an Amazon, but a nice Amazon. I mean, anyway, I'm very grateful for her. So whoever you are, if you're hearing this, I love you as a fellow human being, and I'm greatly appreciative for you sticking up for me and protecting me, because I am a very petite person compared to you. And I just thank you for looking out for me and making sure that I was safe when I was there on my own. So thank you so much. So the next section is about allies for the 90s. It says, Gown held many events to raise awareness and fundraise for their cause, as well as related organizations. In October 1989, Gown hosted a highly successful event with Cesar Chavez, which that concerns me because he's not a good guy, president of the United Farm Workers Union, UFW, entitled Allies for the 90s, United for Health. The event was held at the Union Building, New England Life Hall. The benefits of the event support UFW as well as the Fenway Community Health Center, a center that has a history of working to meet the health needs of the local LGBTQ community. Now, I'm all for people helping other people get their healthcare needs met. And I don't care what sex someone is. I don't care if they're gay, straight, or sexually confused. When you need healthcare, you need healthcare. And your needs in terms of your health should be met. And I think sometimes gays are not treated very well, because they're just automatically assumed as being sexually disturbed or pedophiles or all these horrible things. And just because a man or a woman is gay, that doesn't mean that they prefer children all the time. Some of them do, but not all of them. And so I think they should be treated with dignity and respect, especially when they go into the emergency room and they need care and they need it quickly, just like anybody else. Like, I think I've mentioned this before in a previous podcast. Back in the day, if you were gay and your lover or partner went to the emergency room, even though you'd known each other for years and you are in a monogamous relationship, if you are gay, you could not go in there to help your partner with anything. Like, they would not allow you to go see them. It was only for married couples. I mean, that is so disgraceful. I mean, whoever that person is in love with is the person that should be able to see them. I mean, and I'm a straight Christian Republican capitalist saying this. I'm just shocked at some of the behaviors that have taken place in our hospitals here in the United States, and especially in our ERs. I'm like, you know what? What if you have a gay couple and one of them gets really sick and goes to the ER and dies, and they didn't get to say goodbye to their lover or to their partner? I mean, they just died in someone else's arms that probably didn't even like them. I mean, and that forbid them from seeing who they actually have a relationship with. Even though I don't agree with their relationship, it doesn't matter. Whoever they are in love with is who they are in love with. It's like, sometimes all someone wants is a friend, especially when they're scared, just to hold their hand during that moment. And I have to say that it was completely wrong for any hospital or clinic or any healthcare facility to turn someone away because they're gay for any reason like that. I mean, I think that just fueled the fire of getting homosexual marriage approved, which I do not agree with homosexual marriage. But, I mean, how do you think these people were going to react? They're being told, you can't come in here unless you're a married couple. Well, of course, now they're going to want to have gay weddings. Well, whose fault is that? That's the fault of all the straight people in this country. The straight people were way too harsh and way too mean to all the gay people. That's what happened. Gay marriage probably would have never happened if we had just treated them with dignity and respect and just said, hey, we can't allow you to legally get married, but you can for sure see your partner in the emergency room or whatever the case may be. But I mean, because marriage is between one man and one woman. I mean, I'll even go as far as to say this, like, polygamy is wrong. And I don't understand how, I lost total respect for the show TLC, that station, because they had a polygamy show on there. This guy that had multiple wives, and polygamy still happens in the United States. It is so disgusting and sick. I'm like, it is against the law. It's illegal. And if we have any states that are tolerating it, I don't think they should receive federal funds if they're having polygamy in their state. Because it's a form of sex trafficking. Because you don't have one woman marrying multiple men. You have one man marrying multiple women. Gee, it's like a frat house, where one guy can have as much sex as he wants with all these other women. It's not right. It's disgusting and it's grotesque. I mean, I remember this one ad they had for this polygamy show. And you have one wife that can give birth, she can get pregnant, the other wife cannot. And so she's trying to get adoption. Well, then when they find out that she is in a polygamy marriage, they immediately say no. Excuse me, let me get a drink of water. They immediately say no, the adoption people, and I totally agree with them. Polygamy is not a safe place to raise any child, especially little girls. And we know that from Mormons, some really crazy Mormons. And I've met some really sweet Mormons. I've met some really kind Mormons that, that are not polygamous. But I tell you what, there have been some serious sick cults within the Mormon, I don't even know if you call it a faith, but it's definitely a cult. It's always the men marrying these really young girls, like 12 or 14-year-olds, and they marry all these young girls. Well, those are somebody's daughters and their children. And they're usually being married off to these really hideous, ugly, old men. Like, that's a pedophile. Like, I mean, that's a sex offender. It's horrible. Like, it's so wrong. It is just unbelievably wrong. And I saw that show on TLC, and they're promoting the polygamy lifestyle. And they're trying to glorify it and make it seem like these women like each other and that they see each other as sisters. I'm like, no, they do not. And I'll say this, what if you were one of those women that was married to that guy, you're living in the same house as all these other women that he's having sex with, and all this guy does that's married to all these women is he's just going from one bedroom to another, sleeping with his different wives. Well, let me ask you this, and this is not for children to hear whatsoever. If you were one of those other wives, how would you like hearing your husband having sex with one of his other wives all night long? How sick and disturbing would that be? That's why it's wrong. It's so grotesque. I'm like, it is sex trafficking. It is legalized sex trafficking. And the biggest problem with polygamy, right now that's going on. I haven't heard of a case this year yet, but there are so many girls that are, and I mean girls, I mean like under the age of 18, like way under the age of 18. Usually they are married off into these families where this guy is way older, and then they're trying to escape and they're trying to leave. And here's the thing, if they get caught trying to leave, I mean, they get shamed, blamed, beaten, mistreated, and sometimes killed or tortured. Or they get thrown out of the community because they're considered a traitor because they didn't want to be used for sex. How sad is that? These are girls, these are minors being treated this way. So I mean, we have to be careful what Pandora's box we open when it comes to sexuality. Because unfortunately, when you open the Pandora's box of homosexuality, it opens the floodgate to so many other things. And I don't know why it does that, but it just does. We've seen that in several different cultures and several different societies. And it's almost always the women and children that suffer the most. Almost always. So I know that when I was a kid, we didn't have to worry about the homosexual agenda. You know, we were not bombarded with all this media, and I think children are bombarded with a lot of inappropriate media. Like, I don't really see the point in having a rating, whether it's rated G, PG, PG-13, rated R, or rated TV-14, or rated X, because it's like everything's X now. It is so over-exemplified, and it's just over the top, in my opinion, a lot of these shows. And I'll give an example, like the show Loki with Tom Hiddleston. Or Tim Hiddleston? I always get his name mixed up. Tom Hiddleston, I guess. He has a character playing as Loki where I guess he's the first bisexual character for Disney or Pixar. I'm like, wow, Disney or Pixar has come a long way from its original roots. And you know what? Walt Disney would be disgusted with that. Because Walt Disney was a gentleman. He did not allow that kind of stuff to infiltrate children's shows. Like, it's one thing to have an adult show. Because I watched Loki for several episodes, and initially I was very impressed with it. I was like, this is a great show. But then when they had the part where the girl that plays opposite Tom Hiddleston asked him, you know, do you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. They're putting homosexuality in this show? How sick. I stopped watching it. Like, I actually canceled my membership to whatever media outlet that Loki is being played on. I canceled it. I'm like, I'm not going to be a part of that. Because I don't agree with that lifestyle, and I don't want to watch something like that. Like, I watched the show for the value of it, and that Tom Hiddleston is a great actor, and that actress is, I can't remember her name, but she's great too. I'm sure I've seen her in other things, but it's just like, you know what? Like, I don't want some homosexual agenda pushed onto me when I'm just trying to enjoy a show. Like, I don't even have to hear about straight sex for heterosexuals. Like, I really just wanted to hear about, you know, Loki's adventures, I guess you could say. And it has nothing to do with being bisexual. And plus, here's another thing. I don't think the character Loki would be bisexual because he was raised as a prince. And a prince is not going to be homosexual if you want to grow your kingdom, because you have to have a wife. So, needless to say, I canceled that subscription. Oh, and I really love Owen Wilson's acting. He is so good in that show. It greatly disappointed me to have to cancel it. I was just like, I don't want to have to watch it. I don't, you know, I'll put it this way. Like, I didn't even like, what's the show, Desperate Housewives or something? Is that what it's called? Is that what it's called? No. Let me look it up real quick. So there's this one show that was really popular. Hold on a second. Desperate Housewives. I don't think it was it says the comedy drama. Yes, I think this is it, actually. Yes, because I recognize Eva Longoria. I remember when that show came out, Every woman I worked with was watching it. So I thought, oh, Lesley, you're so missing a wonderful show. You've got to watch it. So I watched one episode of it, and I was so sickened by it. I just felt it was so sexually inappropriate for TV because children could be watching that. I think that should have been on HBO or Cinemax or one of those other stations that is for adult material like Comedy Central or something. But I just thought, and I'm quite a bit younger than these actresses that are in that show, but I just thought, when people are older than me, I expect them to be mature and I expect them to behave appropriately and to do appropriate work. And I felt like all these women that acted in that show were doing inappropriate work, and they were tackling issues that did not need to be tackled, and I did not think it was appropriate for public television. And I don't mean it was on PBS or OETA, because it was not, but I think that when you have it on a mainstream channel and that kids can watch it, I think that as the adults of this country, we should put our foot down and say, this is not appropriate for children. This is not right. We should not have that on there. So, needless to say, like, whenever I see some of these actresses, like their shows, I don't watch them because I was very disappointed in their work that they participate in such a sexually degrading show. I just thought you're selling sex, you're selling scandal. I'm like, why can't you sell morals and values? I mean, why can't you sell clean humor, good humor? I mean, I'll give an example. Like, you can watch, who's one of these vulgar comedians that I wish they would clean up their language because they actually are funny. Like Bill Burr. I love Bill Burr. His stuff when he was younger was way funnier than it is now. But I wish he would stop using horrible curse words. Because I've had to stop watching him because of that, because it's just too much. Now let's look at the opposite. Let's look at Sinbad. Super funny, but doesn't use any bad language. It's super hilarious. And you know what? He's made a lot of money over the years. He's been very successful. And, I like being able to see his shows and not be worried about someone dropping, the F-bomb or saying the Lord's name in vain, which, that makes me cringe. It makes me feel horrible. I'm just like, I can't be around that. It's horrible. It's degrading to our Heavenly Father. So I just think that if you really care about yourself and you care about your country and you care about your fellow man, then you're not going to participate in something that is degrading to our society. And so even though Desperate Housewives was not necessarily a homosexual agenda, it was more straight agenda, but it was just too much for me. And I couldn't even take watching a whole show. And the women that I worked with who were around my age and some were older, they're like, you don't like the show? I was like, that's right. I don't like it. I think it's inappropriate for television. And they're like, what are you, an old maid? I'm like, no, I just don't want to think that way or watch those things. It's not appropriate. It doesn't enhance my life at all. It doesn't add value to my life. If anything, it takes it away. And it also encourages me to think that certain behaviors are normal for women when it's not. I would rather see something appropriate as opposed to inappropriate. We're not little kids anymore. I remember being a little kid and I always wanted to watch a bunch of rated R movies. I mean, every kid wants to see a random sex scene like everybody does, and then you want to see violence and gore, and then it's we're not little kids anymore. And plus the sex scenes that we saw in the 80s are nothing compared to the ones that are today. Today's sex scenes are more like porn. I'm like, I don't think so. Getting a drink of water. But anyway, let's continue on. I digress. So anyway, make sure that whatever you're watching is appropriate. And I want to encourage you, I want to say this. If you're okay with homosexual stuff being on TV, I challenge you to something. And I want you to write me back on this. I want you to message me back and let me know how this goes. I challenge you that for 40 days, you watch only clean television, clean shows. No cursing, no vulgarity, no sex. And first of all, try and find those shows. And that are not children's shows. And also try and find appropriate children's shows. That's another thing. But try and find appropriate, just regular television for adults. That is not TV-14, that's not rated R or X or anything like that. Like, try and find just normal, good shows. Like, shows that, are funny and are not too serious, and that are not gruesome. Like, I used to watch CSI, what was it? No. I watched that too, but Law and Order. I used to watch all these Law and Order shows. My favorite used to be Criminal Intent. And then they just got too disturbing. I couldn't watch it anymore. I'm just like, I get crimes happen, but could you please do it in such a way that it's not going to give me nightmares after watching it? Like, it was just getting way too intense. Because the original Law and Order was great, but then the cases just got weird. I'm like, are these writers running out of ideas that they need to try and make it so that every case is about evil, wicked serial killer? I'm just like, we don't need that, because that's not who's doing all the crimes in this country. But anyway, I encourage you, try and find good, positive, appropriate TV shows. Regardless of whether you're watching from Amazon, YouTube, Netflix, Peacock, whatever these other outlets are. And just really, and also try and find shows that do not push a political, liberal, or homosexual agenda. Not even a conservative agenda, but just no agenda at all. Like, just be a normal television show. And not try and push a cause or an event or things like that. And I'll give you examples of ones that are really good. They're just good, wholesome shows. I would say Everybody Loves Raymond, The Anna Griffith Show, I Love Lucy, Are You Being Served, Keeping Up Appearances. Three's Company is a good one, but also kind of encourages premarital sex, so maybe not. But it does. It's funny, that show. I'm trying to think of all the other ones I used to watch. Oh, like Magnum P.I. Of course, that has some premarital sex, but not like what is today. I think a lot of stuff from the 80s is really good. This really good channel you need to watch. Grit. The Grit channel. Grit. I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast. They have great westerns on there. From I think it's from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, maybe the 70s. I mean, even if you're not a western fan. Normally, I'm not a western fan, but man, the screenshots, the panoramic views of the canyons that we have here in the United States, the filming locations are just worth to watch these shows. And they're usually dramas. Sometimes they're Western dramas. Sometimes they're humorous dramas. And sometimes they're like these serial TV shows. They maybe had like a couple episodes on a week back in the 50s, 60s, or 70s. But they were on TV for like well over a decade or something. Like, they're written really well. And they're really good human dramas. So those are great. Like, even though I'm not a huge Western fan, I love that show. I love that station. Like, if I can find those, I love it. And then, there's another show I just thought of. What was it? And then I just lost it. All Creatures Great and Small, the original from the 70s and 80s. It's a BBC show. Great show. It is so cute. It's charming. Just excellent acting in it. I mean, I love the British people. They're so awesome. I'm going to say this to Great Britain. You need to work on your shows. Because the recent ones, especially the last 10 or 20 years, they have become so gruesome and so disgusting, I can't take it. Like, I usually love watching detective shows, but these are so grotesque, just murderous kind of shows, and it's just, they're too gruesome. I mean, I prefer Agatha Christie, Miss Marple. Like, have some more gentle shows. Like, you can have a murder theme, but, don't be so graphic and, rapist or crime scene or things like that. Like, or have like, was it Hercule Poirot, Miss Marple, and then, there were some other ones that were really good. Oh, Rumpole of the Bailey. He's not a murder mystery, but that is an excellent show to watch from the BBC. And what I love about that show is it talks about court cases. Some of them are real, some of them are not real, that occurred in Great Britain during the 60s and 70s. So that's really interesting because I love that. But it's not a documentary, but it's like kind of like a humorous melodrama, I guess you could say. It's done so well. But, just try and find shows that are not, basically what is popular right now. And I'm telling you or challenging you to watch those for 40 days. And only watch those if you're going to watch TV or television or whatever the case may be. And I want you to really give your brain a chance to comprehend what you're watching, because here's what you're probably going to experience, because this happened to me, because I used to watch really violent stuff. I used to just watch whatever was on. I was like, I can't really find anything else. And I was like, I need to really work on my brain here. I don't want to plant these seeds of gruesomeness in my brain because it's just too graphic. What I noticed was that initially I was very agitated, like very irritated, like I don't want to watch this, I don't like this, I need action. And what I realized was that I was addicted to entertainment. I was addicted to being overstimulated. It's almost like drinking way too much caffeine is what watching these current shows are like. And that's very unfortunate, because we don't have to be extremely entertained or extremely overstimulated to be entertained. Our brain is our best imagination. It is the best storyteller or movie maker on the planet. Our brain does that for us. So we don't have to be oversensitized, because over time, if you're oversensitized, you become desensitized. And that's why we have a lot of people that have a lot of apathy. Not empathy, but apathy, meaning they don't really care. They just kind of shrug off social and civil responsibilities that people long ago, like 20 or 30 years ago, used to take very seriously. So just FYI, you will feel some apprehension probably the first couple of days, if not the first week or so, depending on how addicted you are to these very aggressive and sexually addictive shows, I would say. Because some of them are sexually graphic, and I'm just like, I can't handle that. Or vulgar. And so then I started noticing that when I started watching these other shows, that they were still entertaining. They just weren't so rated R or TV-14. I noticed that the more I watched these other shows, I was happier, I was calmer. Like I could still find joy in life. I could still find joy in watching these things, but it wasn't just over the top. You gotta be happy. Oh, there's a crime. Oh, it's violent. Like it wasn't like that at all. It was, there's only so much your brain can take. And I think we overstimulate our brain with social media, and then we go right into watching something, and then while we're watching something really graphic or gruesome, then we're checking our phone, answering a text, answering a call, doing all this stuff. And I tell you what, the best setting on my phone is Do Not Disturb. I kid you not, the moment I wake up in the morning, actually my phone, I kid you not, I used to just turn my phone on Do Not Disturb from 8 to 5. So that way I could focus on my work, whether I'm at work or whether I'm at home working, during COVID and things like that. And now my phone is almost always on Do Not Disturb unless I'm expecting a very important phone call. Like my phone is silent most of the time now. And it's been like that for almost 2 or 3 years now. And I learned that when I'm watching something to not have my phone right next to me. Because I don't want to see the screen come on. I want to give the show or the person I'm talking to or the person that's talking to me, I want to give them my full attention. I want to be present in the moment. And I realized that I was so distracted. I was so trying to find something to fill a void in my life. And then I realized I don't have a void. I'm just overstimulated. It matters what you watch, what you read, what you see, what you hear, and what you do. So I challenge you, listeners, I challenge you to a challenge here for 40 days. Do not watch any of the stuff we just talked about. Only watch the things that we just talked about. I probably should reword that. Do not watch anything that's TV-14 or PG-13 or rated R, but only watch the good stuff, like from kind of like back in the day. And give your brain a chance to relax and to have joy. I challenge you to that, because I think what will happen to you will be like what happened to me. I have a calmer life now. I didn't realize that I was hyper and I was overstimulated. I was anxious. I was nervous. I was always trying to multitask all the time. And I hated multitasking, but my brain I had trained it. I had allowed my brain to be trained into thinking I constantly have to be doing something. I constantly have to be doing something. when in fact we don't. We don't have to constantly be doing something because we're already doing something. I mean, does that make sense? I hope so. Like, we just kind of need to be calm, be rational, and, be gentle with ourselves, be gentle with our brain, our life, our heart, our soul, and I pray that it works well for you because it changed my life. And no one suggested that I do that. It's just I wanted to try it because I recognized that I wasn't watching very positive shows. Oh, and I changed the music that I listened to. I normally listen to EDM, electronic dance media or music. And I love dubstep, I love trap music, I love rap music. I also do classical and oldies and 80s as well. But because I exercise a lot, I typically like to have that good beat, that good bass. And a lot of those basses and beats are usually to very negative sounding songs. And sometimes there's a lot of cursing in it. So I've had to learn to change what music I listen to because I'm not a big cursor. I'm not a big vulgar individual. So that's not how I normally behave or act. I mean, every once in a while I stub my toe and yell a word I shouldn't. And I ask God to forgive me on that. And so I thought, if this isn't something I would want to watch, why am I listening to it? So I asked God to help me find music that was appropriate. And I don't mean like necessarily only listening to gospel or Christian music. That's not what I'm saying. But just find things that are not overly offensive or offensive at all. And God helped me find several music stations that are mostly from the 80s and 70s. And some from the 50s and 60s. And then there's also some dubstep that I really like that's not vulgar. So I can still have that really good beat for when I'm exercising and have that really good thud, like when you have a subwoofer or something. It sounds so awesome. I love it. I love a really good beat. I love a really good bass. But anyway, I encourage you to mix things up and to really, draw a line in the sand and just give this a try. Just give it a try. Like I did, and it was a huge sacrifice. I kid you not, folks, my brain fought me. My brain was so agitated, so irritated. Why? Because I'm having to train it to do something new. I'm not allowing it to do whatever it wants. I'm not allowing it to just think, oh yeah, I can listen to this anytime I want. Nope, we're changing. You would be surprised how agitated my brain was. I noticed it. And so then I had to make sure that I didn't tell anybody off. If someone irritated me or something. But anyway, let's continue with this one. We're almost done with it. But I just thought I'd tell you what happened to me and, maybe, it helped me. I'm hoping that it can help you is what I'm trying to say. So, I definitely want what is best for all of you because that's a wonderful thing to have. But anyway, it says the Fenway Community Health Center was fundraising in order to build a new building. That's good. They originally planned to use union labor, and shortly before the benefit, started on the agreement and announced they would use non-union labor. That's kind of sad. The event was featured in the Labor Page, a news publication for Boston area workers, as well as many other local LGBTQ publications. I think that's really neat that LGBTQ actually has publications because I think that if you are trying to reach people, you do need to print it. Even if I don't agree with everything that's in there or what they talk about, I think that when you see a need, you need to fill that need and that you need to help people realize they're not alone. That's one thing I do like about that is they're not leaving anyone stranded, if that makes sense. And so that way people don't feel like they're abandoned or orphaned. So that's kind of how I feel in my faith. Like I know that because my Heavenly Father loves me, I am not orphaned, I am not abandoned, I am not alone. He loves me and I can go to the Good Shepherd anytime I want. He's always there for me. That's how I feel. Like I'm part of God's family. I'm part of His holy family. So even though I'm not married yet and don't have children of my own yet, I am still in God's holy family and He loves me very much. And so I love it when fellow Christians reach out to me, and I love it when they send me articles or when they send me newsletters. It's kind of the same thing in regards to LGBTQ publications. It's a way of really promoting community and helping people come together for a common cause and for something that you believe in. Like I don't necessarily believe in the LGBTQ agenda, but I know that it's important to have unity. And so I know that, whenever I want to get to know other people that, think the way I do and have the same hobbies as me, I know that I can go to people that practice my same faith. And, I could say, hey, have you read any good publications or magazines or books? Is there anything you recommend? And then, you develop that fellowship. And what I love about that is that I have extremely grown in my faith because I have chosen to have fellowship with other people within the Christian faith. Whereas for a long time, because I was Catholic, I did not feel like I had really good fellowship. So when I left the Catholic Church, I was really intent on finding people to get to know and to be a part of the community and be around people that can help me in my faith walk with Jesus Christ. Because I knew that I had been floundering for a while, even though I know Jesus, I love Jesus, and He loves me, all those good, wonderful things. It really matters when you feel it and you know it. Because sometimes we can feel it, but we don't know it. And sometimes we can know it, but we don't feel it. And I don't like to live off of feelings, not by any means. But I do like to have that sense of well-being, that sense of fellowship, because it is important when we are practicing our faith. Especially when we are, worshiping, the one true God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of Joshua. I think it's really important that you how do I word this? I feel like I'm walking on eggshells a little bit, but I shouldn't feel like that because I'm just talking about my faith here. But, just to be in fellowship with like-minded people, I think really helps make your life shine in a bigger and brighter way. Because then you get to be who you naturally are, and you don't feel like you're putting on a show, and plus you don't have to hide who you really are. Because I've been there. I felt like I couldn't say I'm Catholic, and then when I was Catholic, I felt like I couldn't say I was a convert. It was just this, it was just miserable. I don't know how else to describe it. But it's just nice to have fellowship with good people, and to be a part of something that you believe in, and something that you look forward to. Because that was one of the problems I was having in the Catholic faith, was that I started to not look forward to going to church, so I eventually stopped going to church. And I thought, I'm better than this. So that's when I found a church to attend. I started going online. I kind of church hopped a little bit, and then I actually started attending the church in person. And I have met so many good and kind, wonderful people that are like-minded, and I think it really matters who you have fellowship with, because that's the direction your life is going to go. So, anyway, it says the article spotlighted Gallon's uniting with UFW and was the first form of media publicity that Gallon received since its inception. And then it says Pride at Work. Pride at Work was founded in 1994 with the help of Gallon. Pride at Work is a nonprofit organization and an officially recognized constituency group of the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, also known as AFL-CIO. Pride at Work organizes support between the labor movement and the LGBTQ community for social and economic justice. I get very concerned with that, because whenever someone says they want social and economic justice, it usually is a very liberal way of looking at things. Because I remember this one meeting I went to, it was at a Catholic church, and let me get a drink of water. Hold on just a second. Okay, I'm back. So, there's this one meeting I went to at a Catholic church. It's called listening groups. It's where the bishop or archbishop wanted to hear thoughts, basically from parishioners at all the parishes within his archdiocese or diocese. He wanted to know what they were concerned about and what they wanted to work on, and what they felt like we needed to work on as Catholics and as a community. And there's this one crazy nut lady that was at our table. And she goes, well, we need social justice. And she was really just crazy about it. And so she sounded like a nut. And someone at our table asked her, what do you mean by social justice? What? And she just goes, well, social justice. Don't you know what that is? It's social justice. We need more of that. We're just missing it. And we're just what do you mean social justice? Can you give us an example? Is there something that happened? Is there, something that happened at a job or maybe a church? And she couldn't tell us anything, nothing. It's just a catchphrase. It was a very popular phrase at the time. Oh, we want social justice. Put your fist up in the air. Social justice, social justice. Just over and over again. And we're just okay, I have no idea where this lady came from, but she is weird. I always find it interesting whenever someone says they want social justice and they're not specific about what they want. Are you talking about labor unions? Are you talking about trade unions? Are you talking about the workplace? Are you talking about the police force? Like, are you talking about some type of brutality? Like, give me an example. And so we didn't give her an example. We were expecting her to tell us one, because here's what I've learned about that. Like, if I were to be talking to someone that was as nutty as her, I'd say, well, what are you talking about? And then I start giving specific examples. And she goes, oh, that's it, right there, that right there. That tells me she didn't actually have an example ready to go in her head. She's just trying to get on the bandwagon of yelling social justice because she doesn't have the brains or the initiative to actually focus in on something that actually does need social justice. Like, be specific. Like, what are you willing to fight for? So people that just make these, they're just loud people that don't really amount to anything in terms of what they do, because all they do is yell stuff, but they're not really, they don't really care to be a part of something. They just want to look like they're a part of it. Like, they just want to look like they're important, and they want to look like they know stuff, but when it comes down to it, they really don't. Because if she actually did believe in social justice, she would say, well, I saw this on TV and I investigated, and I really think that we're having this specific problem. And you list it, XYZ or ABC or 1, 2, 3, list specific bullet points of what is happening, how it is offending that person, and then, what do they want to do about it? What's the result that you want? What's the goal? See, unfortunately, whenever people start tooting that horn, social justice or economic justice, they very rarely give specific examples. And I'm not going to give them examples. I'm not going to give them ideas. Like, they need to come to me and say, hey, this is what I've noticed. This is what I want to help out with. And I'll give an example of something that I actually helped out with as a little girl. And I think I already said this in a previous podcast. But when I was in, it's a 4th grade or 5th grade? I think it's the 3rd or 4th grade. I wrote a letter to the principal of our grade school requesting hot water be installed in all the bathrooms in our school, because all we had was cold water. Well, during the winter months here in Oklahoma, it can get below freezing, and it gets really cold here. Like, it may say it's only 20 degrees, but the wind chill can make it like -2. Like, it can get really cold here. Well, the water that's being pulled into the tap that comes out of the faucets in the bathrooms is coming straight out of the ground. I mean, it is freezing cold. So because the water was cold, these kids would use the bathroom, but they wouldn't wash their hands. And I always did. I was like, this is disgusting. Like, it was so gross. I always washed my hands. But I noticed that, hey, if we had hot water, just like we do at home or something, these kids would actually wash their hands. So instead of yelling, I want economic justice or I want social justice, instead of doing that like people do today, I was very specific about a problem that I saw, an issue that bothered me, and I came up with a solution. And as a 3rd or 4th grader, I wrote a letter on my Lisa Frank fancy stationery, which is like unicorns, bubbles, and kittens on it. I think I did mention this because I remember mentioning about Lisa Frank stationery. But so I wrote a letter, and the stationery with the letterhead and the envelope, it was so cute. I absolutely love that letter. And so I turned it in to the principal's office, and then come the next year, I'm guessing I would have written that in 3rd grade, because then it was 4th grade. I didn't even think anything else about it. So I dropped off the letter when I was in the 3rd grade, and in the 4th grade, I got pulled out of class by the principal, and all the kids were like, Lesley's being pulled out of class? What did she do? Because she never gets in trouble, which is true. I never really got in trouble. Even the teacher was like, why is the principal pulling her out of class? Like, did something happen? Did something happen to her parents? Did something happen to her sister? Like, what is going on? So the principal pulled me out of class, and she was not a particularly nice principal. She wasn't the mean one I talked about later on. She was a nice principal, but she was stern. Like, she had the short haircut like a guy, but she was not butch. She was married. She just happened to be older and got sick of fixing her hair super fancy. So, I mean, she still had cute hair, but it was more like how women wore their hair super short, like in the 50s or something. And so, anyway, she pulled me out of class, and she told me that she had received my letter about requesting hot water be installed in all the bathrooms, and she said, we are going to install hot water in every bathroom in the entire school. And she thanked me for writing that letter and, making her aware that none of the kids in any grade were washing their hands when it becomes winter, because the water is so cold, it's just brutal to the hands. Like, our hands would turn blue, our fingers especially, as we're washing our hands. And so then I went back into class, and the kids were wondering, what happened, Lesley? What happened? And so I told them what happened, and even my teacher was like, you did that? You wrote a letter to the principal? I was like, yeah. I had an idea, and, I got sick and tired of people not washing their hands. I mean, I don't like cold water. Oh, here's another thing. If I didn't want to wash my hands in cold water, I would sneak into the teacher's bathroom. That's what me and some of the other girls did. We snuck into the teacher's bathroom, which had hot water, and there was also perfume in there. So the teachers figured out that we were using their bathroom because, we would get gussied up in there. We would just spray ourselves with perfume like crazy. It was funny. Absolutely funny. But anyway, so then when I graduated from high school, pretty sure I mentioned this as well in a previous podcast, but just in case you didn't hear this, when we graduated from high school, if we attended a grade school in the hometown that we were graduating from, one of the last days of our school year of being a senior, we got sent back to our grade schools for a celebration. And so the grade schoolers at our grade school gave us cards, gifts, and sang songs for us, congratulating us that we were graduating high school, and let me get a drink of water. And so my fourth grade teacher was still there, and she said, Lesley, I want you to stand up in front of everyone. So I stood up, and none of my other classmates stood up. So I'm standing up, and she said, now kids, she's talking to all the little ones, right, all the grade schoolers. And she said, I want you to know how special this young lady is. I don't know if you know this, but this young lady, who's now graduating high school, back when she was your age, she wrote a letter to the principal requesting that hot water be installed in every bathroom. And because of her letter and her dedication, hot water tanks were installed in every bathroom of this school, and that's why we have hot water. And all the kids just looked up at me like, wow. It was like I was a celebrity to these little kids. It was funny. But it also, it embarrassed me, like not in a bad way, but in a good way, because, sometimes I'm kind of shy when standing up in front of people, but, the people that I went to school with, my classmates, they were just looking at me like, like they could care less. But I mean, literally they could care less because they weren't the ones that cared. They were some of the ones that were not washing their hands after going to the bathroom. And so I was like, oh, you grubby paw people, but anyway, these kids, they were so cute, these little kids. They're just like, whoa, she wrote a letter to the principal. That's so cool. It was pretty cool. And then I'll tell you this, there was another time that I know my bathrooms. I've always been a stickler for bathrooms of how I want them to be. So if I don't like how a bathroom is, I complain about, but I give an idea on what to do, how to fix it. So when I was in mid-high, I think that was the 9th or 10th grade. No, it would have been earlier than that. I was in middle school, so I was in 7th and 8th grade. So, let me think. No. I'm trying to think about who my principal would have been. I'm thinking about the school. No, I was right the first time. I would have been in mid-high, in 9th or 10th grade, because I was looking forward to getting to drive. So I need to... Yeah, that is correct. Okay, so I was in mid-high, which is 9th and 10th grade. And so I noticed that kids, girls, were not flushing the toilet after they're going to the bathroom. And so then I would go in there, and all these toilets would be full of urine and feces. And I'm like, you're telling me you can't flush this? And it's like industrial flushers, right? Like, because it's a large school. And so I was like, we really need to work on this. And I noticed that whenever people did not flush the toilets, they also were not washing their hands. And so there were times that we had really horrible outbreaks of the flu in our school. I noticed that. And so, because there were certain bathrooms I would avoid because I didn't want to get sick. And they thought I was crazy because I was always washing my hands. And whenever I walked into the bathroom, I would go into every stall and flush the toilet because I knew it was going to be loaded with feces or urine. And I'm like, well, this is how disgusting some of you people are because you're not flushing a toilet. Like, is this how you are at home? Possibly. I'm glad I don't live with you. But anyway, so I went to the principal and I said, hey, I'm noticing this. I'm noticing that sometimes we have outbreaks of the flu really bad. And also we have outbreaks of other diseases, especially associated with E. coli. And I know what's causing it, so I told her what's causing it. And so I said I have two ideas. And mind you, I made an appointment to see her. Like, I didn't even write a letter. I just made an appointment. And you can do that. So feel free to make an appointment. Well, I don't think any minors are listening to this, but if you are, feel free to make an appointment with your principal or vice principal anytime, especially if you have really good ideas how to help your school and also cut down on disease and outbreaks and things like that. And I think that's really good considering how bad COVID was. But anyway, so I made an appointment to see her. And I said, hey, I want to show you what's going on in the bathrooms here. So I told her what was going on. I said, well, let's go to one of the bathrooms that, I'm closest to. And they're always full of feces and urine. So we went in there, and sure enough, they were full of it. Because these girls were not flushing the toilet, and it was absolutely disgusting. And they know better. They do know better. So my idea to combat the grossness of these bathrooms and to combat the outbreak of disease within our public school was, first of all, to install automatic flushers. Let me get a drink of water. So I recommended installing automatic flushers on all toilets. So if these people are going to be lazy bums, doesn't matter. Once their bum lifts off that toilet, it's going to flush. So they can, I was going to use a bad word. Anyway, so regardless of what they do in the toilet, once they get up, it's going to flush. And then also to put up a informative flyer on all the mirrors about hand washing and how long to wash your hands. Because I think sometimes people did not know you have to wash your hands a minimum of 10 seconds. So you have to be like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, that kind of thing. And so then come the next year, and here's the thing, the principal, I think she was the vice principal. She loved my ideas. She thought it was great. She really was taken aback that I cared about this. And I said, I know people don't speak up about stuff because they act like they don't care, because they literally don't care, but I do. Like, I don't like walking into a filthy bathroom. And I think that if ever we have guests here, it's a poor reflection on our school, our town, and our state that every single toilet is full of urine and feces because no one flushes after they go to the bathroom. And then they're not even washing their hands. Like, it's absolutely filthy and disgusting, and it spreads disease. So either they're doing it intentionally or they literally don't know what can spread disease. So, which I don't really buy it that they're completely ignorant, and neither did the vice principal. So she said, well, I agree with you. She goes, if this can help keep our students safe and we can make the bathrooms a cleaner and more sanitary place, and if we can cut down on disease, because I said, look, when these kids start getting sick, they get everybody sick. So we're missing school because of this. And so she very much agreed with me that, hey, if we can combat this disease like this, or combat diseases, this is plural, and if we can combat it, then we won't have as many people missing school, we won't have as many absences, and we can just have a better place to go to school. So she had automatic flushers installed, and then she also had flyers installed or printed and put on the bathroom mirrors in every bathroom in our school. And I was just like, amen, that is so awesome. But you see, that's one of those things that it's like if there's a social justice or economic justice, or if there's something that you want to do, like you notice a problem, slamming your fist on the table or doing a fist bump, in the air and throwing your fist in the air like Black Panther or Black Lives Matter, and when you're not really addressing the issue and doing it in a peaceful, calm manner and go directly to the source and not be on TV, not throwing hissy fits, not being violent, you get a lot more done when you care as a person as opposed to caring as a group. Does that make sense? Because I think, what would the impression have been to this vice principal if I'd gotten all my girlfriends together and said, hey, why don't we march down to the vice principal's office and tell her that if she doesn't install automatic flushers, we're going to strike and we're not going to show up to school and we're going to picket. Like, I think she would be like, you people need to go back to class and you need to approach this in a appropriate, professional, business-like manner, because you're not going to get stuff done acting like a bully. So anyway, needless to say, in both those situations, I got stuff done, but I didn't do it for me, just for me. I did it for everybody. Because I know that if I'm getting sick or if I'm having a problem with something, probably a lot of other people are as well. And it's something that can affect society, and it can affect our culture. And why not make it better, not worse, kind of thing. So I think that if you have an agenda, and if you believe in some kind of social justice or something like that, or if you're trying to fight an injustice, or even if you're trying to fight disease, my main thing was fighting disease, because I hate getting sick. And so, if you really want to fight something, you need to be strategic about it and do it in a kind and peaceful way. Otherwise, you've already lost the battle. If you come at it from a negative, bully, I'm pissed off all the time, excuse my language, Lord. If you come at it from an aggressive manner, it's going to be very difficult to bring people onto your side. Because, see, here's the thing. In both instances, I was never told no. And I was never told, oh, we don't have the funds. Oh, we got to vote on it. We got to go to City Hall or the PTA or the PTO. None of that happened. It was just between me and the principal in each case. And I didn't brag on myself. I didn't tell a bunch of people. I mean, some people knew, like, some of my best friends knew. They're like, oh, we know this is Lesley. Oh, she got us hot water. And then I didn't really tell anybody about the automatic flushers and the signs. But my best friends knew. They're like, when Lesley doesn't like something, she gets stuff done. Especially when it comes to bathrooms and sanitation. Because I personally believe those are basic. Basic. And if we can't get that right, I mean, we're going to have a hard time getting other stuff right. I mean, that's how I look at it. And I think that, you know, we are pretty advanced in our culture and our society, so there's really no excuse. Even back then when I was younger, I just thought there's no excuse not to care. You know, I really do care about my fellow man and about our culture, our society, our community, and I just thought we're better than this. Like, it shouldn't be my job to flush every toilet. And also, I can't flush every toilet. I can't be in every bathroom all over the planet flushing toilets. You know, that would not be a pleasant job. But, you know, here's the thing. I noticed a problem, and my initial response was flushing all the toilets. And I was actually going to make my own sign to put on the mirror about washing your hands, you know, to prevent the spread of the flu and E. coli and all this other stuff. But I thought, you know, it's not appropriate to put up a flyer if it hasn't been approved through the school, because then other people will want to put stuff on the mirror and then they'll wonder who started that trend. So I didn't want to start something that could lead to something bad. I wanted to set a good example, not a bad example. And so I wanted to make sure that everything was on the up and up. And also I wanted to give the people that were in charge a chance to do the right thing. Because I already knew I would go over this woman's head if I didn't agree with her answer or if I didn't think it was being taken seriously. But she took it very seriously because, I mean, I basically gave my presentation the second time I talked about bathrooms in mid-high. I basically gave her a presentation in one of the girls' bathrooms. And I showed her exactly what was going on. See, here's the thing. If you want someone to really understand what you want and what you need and what you're wanting to accomplish, take them right to the site. Take them to where the action is, as they say. You know, show them proof, show them evidence. Don't just spout off and list all these demands or complaints or anything like that. Really look at from, hey, you cannot deny this evidence. You know, you cannot deny this. You don't say that and you don't treat it like that. You just say, hey, I just want to make you aware of this. This is why it got my attention, and this is what I think we should do about it. And, you know, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what you think about this. And so you have to give the other person a chance to acknowledge the situation and realize there is a problem. And you have to give them a chance to comprehend the situation and also give them a chance to come over to your side. And, you know, give them a chance to agree with you. Like let it be their idea is what I'm saying. Like, let it be them that chooses to support you, not you saying you're going to support me, you're going to do what I want. None of that is relevant. And that's also not appropriate to ever treat someone like that. So I'm just saying this because whenever you're dealing with these social justice or economic justice kind of phrases, it's always, we want justice, we want justice, we want this, we want that. It's just that intensity kind of thing. So I think we need to bring it down a notch and just treat it as black and white, yes and no, and just, keep it chill as much as you can, even if it's a very stressful, tense moment, even if it's not pleasant. Just do what you can to keep your calm. And, it controls your nerves as well. And plus also, it gives you confidence and it gives more validity to your request and to your, I don't want to say demand, but it gives more validity to the situation that you're bringing to light and what you want to see done and what you want to see happen. So I pray that helps you, because it helps me a lot. And I did all of that as a minor. I mean, just think how young a 4th grader or 3rd grader is. Let's see, I would have been 9 years old the first time I got something done. And then the second time I would have been 14, I think. I would have been 14 years old. And I wasn't influenced by adults. I wasn't told how, well, my mother helped me. I didn't tell exactly what I wanted to do the first time. I just said, if I want to write a letter to the principal, how do I do that? Or how do I let the principal know about something? I was very vague about it because I didn't want it to be for my mother. Because also I didn't want my parents to get involved in it. Because I feel like sometimes when parents get involved, they take it over. And my parents were not the type to do that, but I really wanted this to be private. And plus my mother knew me and trusted me. She knew I wasn't a nutter. She knew I wasn't a crazy kid and that I wasn't being a bully to anybody, and that, when I care about something, it's for legitimate reasons. And so she said, well, if you have a complaint, you write a letter. And she gave me a format of paragraphs and things like that and how to write it, but I didn't really go into detail with her at all. I think I said, I have a complaint about something that has nothing to do with home. If I want to make someone aware of it, what do I do? I think that's how I handled it, if I remember correctly. And she said, well, you write a letter of complaint, and this is how you handle it. And she just treated it as a matter of fact, and she let me handle my own thing. I think adults need to do that. They need to let kids think things out for themselves so that way they can grow into being an adult. And plus also gives you a sense of accomplishment. Because I tell you what, I became so popular after that first time, and I wasn't expecting that at all, because they were just surprised I actually contacted the principal back then. And then it's like I was a rock star to these young kids when I was 18. Because, of what my teacher said about me. And then these little kids, they didn't even know about the second bathroom complaint and what I did to help with that bathroom. But anyway, I'm just saying that, when you care about something, that's great. Care about it in the right way, in the appropriate way, because the last thing I would want is that if you notice something that's wrong, the last thing I would want is for you to not be successful at helping there be a better outcome. And that you didn't get a chance to make a wrong right, or you didn't get a chance to really help the situation. You either didn't get to help at all, or you made it worse. So that's why I handled the things that I did in the way that I did. So I hope that helps a lot, because I just want to make sure that people understand that we need to be careful when we're talking about social justice and economic justice, because it's sometimes it's a free-for-all, and we need to be careful about when something's a free-for-all, what we say, what we do, what we think, how we verbalize it, and that we be kind and respectful. Because, even if I disagree with someone, I'm still going to be kind and gentle. Even though, I would be going to the bathroom, and I would know when someone was sitting next to me in the stall, I can hear what they're doing. I don't like hearing it, but you can hear it, and I know they didn't flush, and I can recognize their shoes. I know what class they're in. I'm just sometimes people need an extra incentive or a reminder on what is the appropriate thing to do in the bathroom. So, which is to flush when you are done and wash your hands vigorously after you have gone to the bathroom. But anyway, so it says Pride at Work has a national chapter as well as over 20 local chapters across the country. Today, Gowan is considered to be Boston's chapter of Pride at Work. So that is it for this episode. The next one will be, let me take a look. Let's see, it's going to be Glass, Molders, Pottery, Plastics, and Allied Workers International Union. I will make sure we have not already done that one, because we have done some that are in regards to, I believe, molders, if I remember correctly, because there was one union that we did where there was a tiff between carpenters and a different union in terms of labor contracts because moldings had come out in regards to plastics and I guess plaster. So the carpenters and the pottery people, two totally different trade unions, two totally different classes of employment, they were trying to figure out who should get those contracts because technically they both do the same type of labor. It's just the materials that are used that are different. So I'll make sure we haven't already done that one just so it's not duplication. But anyway, I pray that you loved this podcast and that you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.